Okay, hello. Well, as I promised, I said I would put some ideas down on tape so that on each lesson you could go to a file and come up with a clip to get you going. Well, that's what I've done. So here we are. Here's the first one of 5 that I've made for you. I know you've got 7 lessons, but you had the first one already, so this will be your second lesson. And you'll have this for the next 4 as well. And then you've got a final lesson where you can think about an essay. All right, so let's go back to what we were saying last time. This is all going to be about the problem of evil. And I want to think just broadly, first of all, about what the problem is. Remember I said to you that it's a triad. It's a problem with 3 parts to it. That there is evil in the world. God is supposed to be omnipotent. In other words, he is all-powerful, able to do anything he wishes. God is supposed to be omnibenevolent, according to the Judeo-Christian tradition, and indeed many other religions. God is supposed to be omnibenevolent. Okay, so he wants only good. Well, if he wants only good, and he has the power to bring about whatever he wants, then why is there evil and suffering in the world? That's the basic question of theodicy. And remember we said before half term, theodicy is all about justifying God in the face of evil. So that's the business that we're about in the question of evil. And of course many philosophers have come away with the answer, there just is no God. Some have modified their idea of God. So they said there is a God, but he's not all powerful, or there is a God, but he's not all benevolent. So there are other ways of approaching the problem, and I hope that by the end of the 5th lesson, you will, by the end of the 7th lesson, you will have an idea as to what you think about this problem. But as I lay the whole thing out, let's go back to what we said in the last lesson, last Friday, about the Irenaean versus the Augustinian versions of evil. Remember, the Irenaean version of evil is that God created a world which was a mixture of good and evil, so that we had the potential to do good, the potential to do evil, and we had to conquer the evil and do good as a process of becoming better in the world. Augustine, however, a little bit later than Irenaeus, back in the 4th century, Irenaeus was back in the 2nd, Augustine came up with the idea that actually the world was created excellent, God made it perfect, but human beings messed the whole thing up, and so that exonerates God completely from any evil at all. Alright, so working with those 2 basic ideas, where do we go with it? Well, some people say the world is just this battleground between good and evil, a little bit like Harry Potter, if you like, and thousands of other books and films like it. The idea that there's a force for good, there's a force for evil, and the 2 are battling out on the earth, which is some sort of battleground. And you see that in all sorts of paintings as well. Other people like to separate evil into human evil, moral evil, and natural evil. And we started to do this a little bit, if you remember, last Friday when we talked about human evil, what we might call institutional evil, the moral selfishness of human beings who stock up all the grain and food resources in one part of the world and don't let the others have it when they need it. Institutional evil, that means that bankers become rich and other people become desperately poor, lose their livelihoods. All these things, I mean, down to the point of someone lying to someone else and thereby causing them grief and harm. All these different types of evil and suffering are controlled by human beings. However, there is also natural evil, that evil which seems to be caused by forces outside the control of human beings. And we talked about this a little bit on Friday. We've got the idea of natural evil particularly being challenged by Voltaire back in the 18th century. Now, in the thoughts of Leibniz, before Voltaire was Gottlieb Leibniz was a German theologian and philosopher who had the idea that this was the best of all possible worlds, that God could have created all sorts of worlds, but when it came down to what he did create, he decided to create this world, which is the very best world that he could have created. And Leibniz's point was, yes, of course, there is suffering in the world, there is evil in the world, but the type of world that God has actually created is of all the different types of world, the best that he could have made. It was a world that, for example, had evil, but it was necessary for bringing about something greater. It was necessary, for example, for bringing about the love of God through human free will, perhaps. Voltaire was particularly stirred up by the Lisbon earthquake of November 1755. And in the Lisbon earthquake, Voltaire saw untold acts of suffering and devastation, a human misery. And he said, I just don't buy it. And he wrote the book Candide, C-A-N-D-I-D-E, which has since been made into a film and a musical, in fact, by Leonard Bernstein. Candide is a marvellous story about a man who travels out into the world with the pure ideology of this being the best of all possible worlds, taught by his tutor, Dr. Pangloss, and he believes that this is the best world that God could have made. But his experiences teach him that it is not the case. And he ends up, by the end of the book, realising that all he can do is protect his own small area, because in fact this world is pretty rotten and pretty horrible. And Voltaire is making the point that actually God's probably not exonerated from the evil in the world, if indeed he did create this world. Okay, so we've got the idea, the groundwork being done here. Let's leave it there for today. I'm going to send you off to go and do your written work, and I've prepared documents for you to go and read and make notes on. Miss Agur will teach it to you, and then I'll come back next time and tell you a little bit more about the Augustinian view of evil. That's all for now. Go to your work.